Hi, Tim Ditloff, Full Sail Leadership Academy. Welcome to another edition of the Quorum Leadership Podcast. Today, we're joined by Jim Kerlin, the President and CEO of Beyond Vision. Beyond Vision is a great organization that helps people with visual impairments and blindness. Jim, welcome to the Quorum Leadership Podcast. Thanks for doing this. I really appreciate it. Jim's a fellow sailor, so we're going to learn some lessons about sailing and leadership from Jim. Jim's got a lot of racing experience and a lot of great corporate experience. So Jim, tell us about what Beyond Vision does and tell us how you got involved in it.
Well, first of all, thanks, Tim, for the opportunity to talk. My involvement in sailing goes back 40 years. I was working for Harley Davidson and the CEO, or then the Vice President of Engineering, Jeff Bluestein. He went on to be the CEO, but at the time he was my boss's boss's boss. I was working late. We were crashing a program. I was a design engineer. And he came through the department. He just thanked me for working hard. And he said, you know what, somehow the subject of sailing came up. And Jeff was a sailor, and he had an AMF sailboat because Harley was owned by AMF at the time. And he says, something about sailing came up. And I said, you know, I've always wanted to try that. And he says, well, I'm going out tomorrow night. Why don't you come with me? So it was me, Jeff Bluestein, and Eric Buell, who went on to start Buell Motorcycle.
Wow.
At the time, we were greenhorn engineers at Harley Davidson, fresh out of school. And I came out of McKinley Marina down on Lake Michigan, and the instant we came out of the breakwater, I was just passionate about sailing.
Yeah.
So, and I knew I was going to be a sailor then. Got down to Augusta, Georgia. I left Harley and started a job with Club Car in Augusta, Georgia a year later, and bought a sailboat with all the money I had. Couldn't afford an engine at the time. I bought a little 20-foot Hunter, and we sailed an inland lake down in Augusta, Georgia, and that's where I cut my teeth on sailing. And the first time I went out with my wife, I'll never forget it because we didn't have an engine, couldn't afford an engine, so there was no wind. There was not a breath of wind. So we're out there drying up like raisins, and she's like, "Oh, this is a great investment, Jim," And then a storm was coming in, and I didn't know what I was doing, so I didn't look up the weather report. And a Georgia thunderstorm's coming in. So all of a sudden the wind's starting to pick up, and I'm doing this, and I'm pulling lines. And she says, "You know what you're doing?" "Oh yeah, I know." I didn't have a clue what I was doing, but we ended up having to get off the sailboat because the lightning started. And she was like, "Get me off the sailboat." But that's where it all started.
Wow.
Yeah. And then. Later, as I got better at sailing and more passionate about it, I bought a 24-foot Beneteau and sailed that again down there. And then we moved back from Augusta, Georgia to Milwaukee to be back around our extended family. And, 24-foot boat sounds like a big boat to most people, but on Lake Michigan, as you know, it's not big enough. No. And my wife is like, she wouldn't let me go out of the breakwater even. And she's like, "We need a bigger boat." And I was like, "Oh, I love you so much."
Yeah, what wife says that?
I know, it was perfect. So we bought a 40-foot sailboat because I had done a little bit of crewing on some other boats, and that was 2007. I bought, and that'll be the boat I keep for the rest of my life.
Nice.
Yeah. So
Blue Pearl.
Blue Pearl. Yeah, we race her every Friday night in the bay. Mm-hmm. That's a family affair. That's my brother, my cousin, a couple of buddies, my brother's brother-in-law or son-in-law. We race every Friday evening in the bay. We do the Queen's Cup race across Lake Michigan once a year, and then we do the hook race, which is the big race all the way up to Marinette.
And we'll talk about that in a little bit. So how did you get involved in Beyond Vision, or what's the connection to Beyond Vision?
Believe it or not, over a beer.
Okay.
And so I was new to our neighborhood. This is a couple of years after we moved back from Georgia to Milwaukee area, and our neighborhood decided to have a round robin, and so we moved from house to house for different parts of the meal, and the last stop was in my neighbor's basement to have a beer. And it turned out he was on the board of directors here and on the search committee they were looking for a new president because my predecessor had health issues, and my father was blind before he passed away, and then 4 years after my father passed away, my mom remarried late in life, 74 years old, and married my stepfather, who's blind. He was blinded in World War II. A sniper bullet went through both eyes. So at that point in my life, I'd been around blind folks in the family for something like 15 years. And my neighbor starts talking about blind people and employment. And I'm like, what are you talking about? And he's like, I just got to show it to you. Come and take a look. And so I came and took a look, and I was like, wow, I know this. This is manufacturing. This is production. This is, marketing and product development, all the stuff I've been hanging around my whole career, except it was for the special cause of providing employment to people who are blind. So I was probably the least qualified but the most passionate candidate because of my background. And so they gave me a chance, and I faked it for about 6 months and figured it out. And I've been doing it for 18 years now. So.
And for our listeners and viewers, edification, Beyond Vision is a nonprofit organization, 501c3.
Right. 501c3, but we're very untypical of nonprofits. And we're sort of a nonprofit in name only. We are a nonprofit, but most nonprofits are, completely dependent on fund development and donations or membership dues or something like that. Whereas we call ourselves a social enterprise, which is, we do work for other companies and the government, and it's that work that our employees do that provides the jobs, but it also provides the revenue so that we can pay the light bills and the wages and the benefits and all the things, and it's what the wheels on the bus go round and round, so to speak. So 98% of our revenue comes from the work we do for other companies.
What was the biggest adjustments you found when you moved from the for-profit world to the nonprofit world?
I mean, I had served on my church board, and so that was probably my only exposure to the nonprofit sort of management aspect of things. So I had a totally bad impression about nonprofit. No, not for me. I was a commercial business guy, right? But again, this is not a typical nonprofit, right? This we run it like a business in every respect. Our employees are employees. They're not clients, right? They have a job here, and we hire and we fire and we promote and we demote, and everybody here, regardless of their visual acuity or lack thereof, has the same opportunity for career growth, and everybody here gets a market competitive wage. Everybody here is on a bonus program. Everybody here has opportunities for premier benefit program, and so we run it like a business. And I like to say we're not for profit, but we're not for loss either.
Right.
And so it was that aspect of coming in and seeing that it wasn't a typical nonprofit. It's really a business that operates as a nonprofit, but you have to run it like a business, and I've always had that philosophy.
For my sake and for the viewer's sake again, how many people are you employing?
We're somewhere between 120 and 125 people, and the majority of them are blind. And by blind, we mean legally blind. So some of our visually impaired but legally blind employees have different levels of sight. There's so many different causes of blindness. It's just there's many, my father lost his sight to diabetes, but there's retinitis pigmentosa and Stargardt's and glaucoma, and the list goes on and on. So 95% of our direct labor employees are blind, and about 25% of our salaried staff are legally blind. And maybe 20% of our blind employees, legally blind employees, are totally blind. And we're really good at finding the work. Just like, and we do that just like any other company. We go out and we have salespeople that go out and grip and grin and find the work. And then we're very good at accommodating the individual's needs. So if they're totally blind, it's one set of accommodations. If they have partial sight, it's a different set of accommodations. And we're good at that. And that's what. And the reason we do all of this is there's a 70% non-employment rate of people who are blind. It's just really tough for them to get a job. The minute they walk through the door of the potential employer and they see that cane or that guide dog, the excuses start flying. And mostly because of unfounded fears. And so it's a great cause, and we run it like a business.
Types of jobs people would do here, or types of projects you do for your clients would run from Give us an example.
Yeah, I mean, we have everything from really low skill level. I mean, some of the folks that we employ have never done anything before, so they have no skills. I mean, we've taught people which end of a scissors to hold, right? And so we have very low skill level, entry level jobs, say, in our assembly area, where we're, putting widgets together or putting them in a box or bag or whatever. All the way up to very high skilled positions. We run a machine shop, so believe it or not, we've got people who are blind that are running CNC machines that are cutting metal chips, and they're very technical jobs. We have people who are blind in our salaried workforce that are doing HR management. One of my vice presidents who runs our HR and all of our commercial business units. He's legally blind, so everything in between, and our goal is that this is not. I mean, we were started by the state of Wisconsin way back in the early 1900s, and it was a sheltered workshop back then. But I like to say this ain't your grandfather's sheltered workshop, so it's not that anymore. We run it like a business, and all of our people have an opportunity to grow, and we provide that opportunity through training and support and accessibility technology and so forth. So,
and you do beyond manufacturing and assembly, you do some telemarketing.
Yeah, we have a call center. We call it our customer care center, and we're doing call programs for other commercial enterprises and the state of Wisconsin. Like we've had a contract with the state of Wisconsin for, I don't know, 12 or 15 years for unclaimed property. So when you call the 800 number for unclaimed property, you get one of our agents. They look you up in the system, and I forget, the state of Wisconsin's got like some incredible amount, hundreds of millions of dollars of unclaimed property. They're unclaimed insurance, you name it. It's all over the place. So they look you up in the system, and then if there's something for Tim Deerdoff of unclaimed property, then they help you through the process of figuring out how to make your claim. We've had that contract for a long time. During the pandemic, we did it was called PUA, Pandemic Unemployment Assurance Program. And that was a special unemployment program set up for small businesses that were going out of business. Barber shops and accountant firms and you name it, small mom and pop shops. And that program we did for about 2 years. We employed 50 people who were blind. About 15 of them were here, and then we had other agents that were in different states. We did it all virtually, and that was an exciting program. But we do call programs for Harley Davidson. We do call programs for many different commercial entities, and we'll do inbound or outbound call programs.
Wow.
The technology exists nowadays that a person who's blind can use a computer system just as well as you and I.
Wow.
And there's digital screen readers and refreshable braille displays, and you name it. There's lots of technology. So, and they're really great employees because it's so doggone hard for them to get a job. They really lean into their job and they give 150%, and they show up every day. And we have like zero turnover in our call center. The average call center has nearly 100% turnover.
Right.
It's kind of the job you have until you get another job.
Right.
Not in our call center. So that's partly why Harley Davidson uses us, because they just see the quality of the calls. So
wow, that's awesome.
Yeah,
that is really cool. What's the biggest challenge in running the organization?
I would say the biggest single challenge is people. God is great, beer is good, and people are crazy. Is that old country western song, right?
Yeah.
It's really true. I mean, if but it's part of running any business. It's people are quirky, and some people want to do their best every day, and other people don't. Some people want to reach for the stars in their career, and other people just want to do C- work, right? And that's okay. But I would say people challenges is the greatest challenge, and that's comes with the territory. And you're not going to make everybody happy. I saw a what do they call it, a meme on Facebook not long ago. I was having some challenges with a couple of people, and one person wasn't very happy with me. And the meme really reached me because it said, if you want to make everybody happy, don't go into leadership, sell ice cream.
There you go.
Yeah, because you're not going to make everybody happy.
Now, I was looking at your annual report, and in the back, you had a partial list of donors and corporations that sponsor you. So there is a fundraising component that you have, or fundraising need. What type of fundraising need do you have on an annual basis?
So I mentioned it's only 1 or 2% of our total revenue, but it's a very important 1 or 2% because most of our fund development pays for training, and again, I mentioned earlier that people need training, especially the workforce that we're hiring. So we raise about and spend about $300,000 to $400,000 a year on training. It also pays for equipment, specialized equipment. It pays for accessibility technology. So the screen reader technology, a digital screen reader that a person would use as an accommodation to use a computer, it's expensive. So the fundraising helps pay for that. And it also helps us, at the end of the day, we're employing a visually impaired, a blind workforce. And there's a lot of companies up and down the streets in Milwaukee that do assembly and packaging and call center work and machining and the stuff we do, right? So we're working with a workforce, and as hard as we try, our workforce runs about 85 to 87% as efficiently as a sighted workforce, right? And we're continuing trying to close that gap. So now you're working with a slightly, it takes people who are blind a little longer to do certain things. Some things, not so much. Sometimes they can do it faster than you and I can, right? But overall. So now you're competing, right, head to head with a bunch of companies, commercial entities that do what we do, but we're doing it with a blind workforce. So the fund development also helps close that gap so that we can pay competitive wages and good benefits and so forth. So yeah, it's a very important aspect of what we do, and we've had we did a capital campaign to build this, and we raised about the whole program to re-outfit this. This was a former Sam's Club, and we repurposed it for our campus, and it was about a $17.5 million program total. That was the cost of the building and the refurbishment, and we raised about $10 million in fund development for that program. And then on an ongoing basis, we're trying to raise about $half to $750,000 to pay for that training and that equipment and so forth. So, and we have lots and lots of supporters, both individuals and managed funds, foundations. We just did a program. One of our pieces of equipment out in the machine shop is getting old and tired and starting to break down and cost money, and so we want to replace it. And we just put out a call to our individual donors that supported us during the capital campaign, and we raised $68,000 in about 5-6 weeks.
Wow.
So that's the kind of people see what we do here and know that it's some of God's work, and they want to support it.
Yeah. So we talked about your early days in sailing. Takes a special sailor, though, to become a racer. So how did you become a racer? What got you into racing sailboats?
Actually, it was before I bought my sailboat. No, I had my sailboat from Georgia, brought it here, my 24-footer. And the same guy that told me about this job over a beer, he was a fellow sailor. That's why we had so much in common to talk about. So sailing was really woven into every part of my career. But we were out, and he said, "Yeah, there's this group that races on Friday nights, and it's called Mast, and it's a volunteer group, and they race every Friday night out in the bay." And I said, "Well, let's go try it." And so he and I got on my little 24-foot sailboat, and we sailed out there and said, "Hey, we want to get in the race. Can we get in the race?" They said, "Sure." And, "Which way do we go?" He said, "Follow the crowd." So we were late for the start, but we had a blast, and we just showed up and then joined this group, this volunteer group, and you know, the racing aspect of sailing really teaches you at a different level. You know, as you know, sailing is sort of a lifelong learning experience, but cruising is one thing where you have all the time in the world, and you know, nothing's in a hurry, right? Racing, everything has to happen quickly, otherwise you're not going to do well, right? So, and that teaches you a whole different skill level, and so I think it's really made me a better sailor, and it's fun to have the competition and the camaraderie and all of that. But even when we're cruising, my wife teases me, so we'll be out there in the bay, and I say, hey, tighten up that jib a little bit, you know, let's bring in the main a little bit. And she's like, why? We're not racing. And yes, we are. There's another boat near us. You're always racing.
Exactly. Yeah. You talked about hook race before, and for our audience's perspective, the hook race starts in Racine, Wisconsin, and it sails up the coast of Wisconsin up to Door County, and off the end of the peninsula in Wisconsin is Washington Island. You sail through Death's Door, the Straits of Door County, and you sail over to Menominee, Michigan. The race is 189 nautical miles as the crow flies. Of course, a sailboat can't race as the crow flies because you can't sail into the wind. So it's a little bit longer than 189 nautical miles at times. You and I both been in the 2020 hook race when there was a big blow, and the 2018 race wasn't a picnic either. You were just telling me about being in the hook race, and your starter was fine when you started, and all of a sudden it was in the bottom of the boat,
Engine compartment.
At the engine compartment, and you had to fix that. What has sailing taught you about handling emergencies in the business world?
But by the way, the hook race is, even though it's a little less than 200 miles straight line, I've tracked it on my chart plotter. It's between 300 and 400 miles, depending on where the wind is. Mm-hmm. You know, if you're tacking a lot or going downwind. But yeah, there's always challenges, right? In 2020, you mentioned it was a brutal race. We were having a blast. We were going downwind, flying the spinnaker, which is this big, almost parachute-like sail that goes out in front of your boat, and we're going as fast as the boat can go. We're in a beautiful 15-knot breeze on our stern, having fun, taking turns, seeing who could go the fastest, and by the way, we were the second boat in the fleet. So we were not only having a blast, but we were really doing good. And we got north of Port Washington, between Port Washington and Sheboygan, and there was a thunderstorm coming, and I could see it on the chart plotter, but the Futurecast said it was going to die at the shoreline. What the Futurecast didn't say is that there was a wind line 3 miles ahead of that storm, and we were about 2.5 miles offshore. So we went from this lovely 15-knot having a blast downhill sail to, hey guys, this is getting a little exciting. Let's get the spinnaker down. And I made a mistake. I called for that about 3 minutes too late. So I had just gotten to the bottom of the steps because we take it down into the cabin to depower it, and we got hit by 55, 60 knots on the beam with the biggest sail in our inventory up, and just, you know, we broached and went over on our side, and everybody's hollering, what should we do? And I said, hold on, the storm will pass, right? And I knew the spinnaker would blow up, and it did. And it felt like 5 minutes, and it was probably 30 seconds, and it blew up, and the boat righted, and everybody was still on board, thank God. And so what does that teach you about business is, you know, storms happen, right? And things break, and you constantly have to adjust the way you're doing things. I think it was Jim Rohn. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that, Jim Rome or Jim Rohn. He was a business speaker, and he used to say, we're all like little sailboats. He said, but it's not the blowing of the wind, it's the set of the sail, right? Mm-hmm. And sometimes the wind's at our back, and sometimes the wind is at our face, and you have to adjust your course, right? And that's what sailing's all about. It's adjusting your course, and then so is business. There's challenges. Things break, storms happen. You got to sail through the storm, or you got to fix your starter that fell into the bottom of the engine compartment, or whatever. And so I think that's part of what sailing teaches.
How about leading teams specifically? What are some of the biggest teamwork lessons you've learned from sailing that you brought into the business?
It's all about teamwork, right? It's everybody. If everybody on the crew is doing their part and as part of the team, then you're successful and you're fast and you win the race, right? If there's people on the crew that aren't working together in harmony, it's not going to work as well. And it's that way in leadership too. And I don't know about you, but when we're on these long distance races or any race, I mean, there's a couple of guys on my crew that know way more about sailing than I do. They've been doing it since they were in diapers, right? I was an adult when I started doing it, and so it's a bit of a democracy. I mean, we talk and we say, hey, should we go left? Do you think the wind's shifting right? Do you think we should put up this sail or that sail? And we talk about it together and use the best knowledge of the whole crew, and then I've got to make a decision because I'm the captain, but we do that together all the time. We do that. Last year in the Hook, we got hit right in death's door, which is pretty narrow. It's about a mile wide piece of water, and the thunderstorm hit us right in the door, and I was seeing boats. It was like a wall of water coming, and there was water spouts forming, and we had decreased sail. We only had the jib sail up. I had called for the main to come down, and but I'm seeing boats bail out in front of us, not a couple hundred yards in front of us, and we took a vote right there. It was about a 15-second vote. Do we sail through, or do we want to turn on the engine and drop out of the race? And we decided to sail through, and it was fine. We were under control. It was a little exciting when the hail started, but that's another story. But so it's that's the way I lead, right? Is we have discussions in our leadership team. Everybody has a chance to say their piece. We make a decision together, and then it's time to support each other. And when the door opens back up, we support each other. And it's what you do on a sailboat, right? You work together. Everybody has a chance to weigh in, and you make a decision, and then that's it. Then we keep going.
Ever have any conflict on your boat? And how do you handle that?
I made a mistake of not vetting a crew member one year. It was a friend of a friend, long story. But he was a bit of a controversial dude. He liked to bring up politics a lot. And the worst part was when the work was to start, as you know, there's a lot of work on a sailboat. Somebody's got to, when you finish the race, you got to fold up the sails, you got to tidy up the lines, you got to, tidy up the boat. And he would say, I take a break. So he would sit down and take a break and smoke a cigarette while everybody else was working. And there was almost a mutiny on board. They didn't want him on the crew anymore. So I just didn't invite him back the next season. That's the only controversy we've had. I'm not a yeller. A lot of captains are screamers and get mad, and I just don't believe in that. I think
I used to race for some of those guys, not anymore.
You have choices, right?
Exactly.
Why would you work for somebody that screams at you?
Yeah, exactly. So talking about horizons and what you saw on the horizon in that storm, what's on the next horizon for Beyond Vision?
I'm getting ready to retire. So I've told my board that sometime this summer, we don't have an exact date yet, but because they just started the search process and whatnot. But so the next exciting chapter, I mean, there's a lot of things going on. We're about to celebrate our 120th anniversary of this place's existence, and that's an amazing milestone. And at that same celebration, we're going to celebrate me shoving off and sailing into retirement with my wife, and so there's going to be a new leader, and I don't know who that's going to be. I've made a recommendation of somebody on my staff that I've been grooming for a decade. I hope he gets it. I don't know. He's got to earn it. He's got to compete with a nationwide search, but that'll be an exciting new chapter. I did about as good as I could to take us from where I started here, where we were as a company, as a culture, financially and culture. Everything's changed since then, right? And so, hopefully the next leader will take them to the next level, and someday they'll be celebrating their 150th anniversary.
In the nonprofit world, there's a talk about mission creep, losing your sense of mission, chasing other things that take you off track. In sailing, it's easy to get pushed sideways and get off course. How did you keep Beyond Vision on course and avoid that mission creep as a leader?
We have a vision and a mission statement, which is, sort of our North Star. Mm-hmm. And our vision statement is, to enrich the lives of people who are blind through the dignity of work. And that guides every decision we make. I mean, I tell the leadership team, look, if you make every decision with the mission first, 99.9% of the time, you don't even need to be involved, right? You're making the right decision. So I think it might be easier where you're in a nonprofit. Typically, we have a vision and mission statement, and that is our North Star. That keeps us on track. Are there deviations? Sure, but that at the end of the day, that's our most important metric. It's not typical business where it's profit. Mm-hmm. I think that's what can cause companies and leaders to get off course a little bit, because chasing profit. We have to run a good business. We have to be financially sound, but our mission, employment opportunities for people who are blind, has always been our North Star. Always will be.
One final question: if someone wanted to support Beyond Vision, how do they do that? How do they get in contact with you or your team? What's the best way to support Beyond Vision?
Go to www.beyondvision.com, and there's a donate now button, or you can send me a check or money order or anything you want. But no, kidding aside, if you'd like to come and visit Beyond Vision, I think that's really probably the most compelling thing I could ask people to do, is come and see us, come and meet our employees, and see how awesome they are. So,
great. Well, Jim, thanks for your time. Again, Tim Ditloff with Full Sail Leadership. Thanks for listening into the latest edition of the Quorum Leadership Podcast. Thanks, Jim.
Easy peasy.
Yeah.